So I've given a lot of different presentations on our metering program, so I'll try to stay focused on this topic, but as the questions come up, it just reminds me of a lot of our lessons learned, and that's my nice way of saying, oh my God, was that a challenge or was that a problem that we had to overcome? But GSA, we've had our advanced metering program in place for quite a while. It started with some pilots and things like that we then expanded. So today I'm just going to focus on quick overview of our status and the approach GSA took to do advanced metering. Challenges, I can't, if I can make somebody else have a little less pain than I had, I'm happy to share. And just, this is kind of the critical key point of what this focus is knowing who your users are. They've got various skill sets, and that's real important. They're not going to have the same dashboard. They're not going to want to see the same thing, which kind of ties into the next one. Flexibility, very key, and that's been, we found some really, we didn't know these people were as smart as they were that we had out there, and once you give them some tools, they can run with it, and so we're going to show you some of that. Obviously, the obvious uses of metered data that you guys have probably heard a million times from different presentations, but we're going to kind of show you which of those we really have found to be the most useful, and can't emphasize enough that there is a support cost to your advanced metering program. It's not talked about a lot, but there is cost associated with keeping your system up and running and supported. Then we're going to have a lot of slides that I'll include in there that I tried to put some notes on, some examples of some of our simple ones that we use a lot, the most frequently, as well as a few of our complex, we call them our super users, and what they've come up with. So quick overview, our system's pretty big. We have a Schneider Electric front-end EEM system. But the fact that it's so big is what causes some of your challenges and your problems. As you can see, we have over 5,300 enabled devices. When you see the IP enabled, that's going to tie into our challenges with our IT security concerns because all of our meters are on our network. We do energy and water. We have some sub-metering. GSA's first rolled this out. We did all our covered facilities. We did any building that, any new construction we put in metering, as well as if we had an ESPC or a UESC coming on, we said, hey, let's get advanced metering installed there, and on-site generation, because all the requirements for reporting, we needed to be able to quickly, how much are we generating? Is that PV site that's a 7 megawatt site down? We need to be quickly on it, and what's the problem? Challenges, I did an entire presentation that was almost all on challenges at Energy Exchange last month. So one of our biggest challenges is the cost people claim versus what we really encounter versus the resources you need. There's a real reality check that needs to happen there. Support. There is a support need for advanced metering systems, despite that you just put them in. If you forget about them, there's still some support needs. IT. I don't know if you're not government, maybe you don't have the same rules we have, but man, is it a pain to deal with all the IT requirements. I'm actually having dinner with my IT guy tonight. We're close now. We're very close. Guidance documents, actually that's not on the next slide. The guidance documents, people, they come out and then people think that that's what you're going to do, and we've already kind of been past that, so we kind of struggle trying to stay ahead of that. GSA, because we're the government, we have to do competition, and it creates a very diverse architecture in our system, which creates a problem, whether it be support, maintenance, O&Ms, contracts, making sure they understand what different meters they have in place. Accurate inventory tracking. We're big, and next thing you know, some little guy out in the field put in a meter and he didn't tell us, and there's this inventory tracking nightmare that we try to stay ahead of. Legislative metrics. It's not cost effective to meter, advanced meter anyway, every fuel type in every building. So people think they're looking at a trend that they convert to BTUs, and it's not really the whole BTU because it's only electric, and we didn't meter gas because it wasn't cost effective at that building. So that kind of thing ties us up at times. And I put the cost and resource reality check again because it's that important, and it was that big of a challenge for us. I'm not going to belabor this slide. This just is kind of showing you we have 11 regions. We have 11 regional energy servers, PME servers for most of them, 3 other diverse systems that then all tie into our front-end Schneider Electric EEM system. And everything's on the network, just to remind you guys. So that is a key component to remember that causes us a lot of our IT nightmares that maybe private sector don't have to worry about like we do. What's beyond just analyzing the data, we really take this data and take it to the next step. If those of you are familiar with GSA Link, it ties in our building automation systems that are on the network. So we have sparks from different things that are happening in the building. We've got, a feed from all of our meters feeding into that, only for the buildings that have GSA link though, so that's a subset of our inventory. Digital signage is another piece of that, so when you walk into a really high profile federal building, there's going to be kiosks, it's going to be tying in some of our advanced meter data. We have it all working, but we don't have all that front-end IT stuff, so you haven't seen those kiosks yet, but they're coming, and we're really excited about how that's going to raise the profile of advanced metering in our buildings. To our tenants as well, letting them see how we're performing. First Fuel, that's a company that does virtual remote auditing with ESA requirements to evaluate and audit all of your buildings that are covered facilities. We take this meter data, send the interval data to First Fuel, and they can do a remote virtual audit of your building, and it's saving us a lot of time and money, and it can spit out potential measures where you can save some money, where what kind of potential is out there for your building, and satisfies our auditing requirement. So let me make sure I didn't miss anything on that one. The other thing we use it for, like I said on that previous one, we do use it, we send some of the data, use it for Energy Star portfolio management, benchmarking. And I don't know how many of you are government, but that GHG report's a real nasty thing, and we can use this to help us get some of that data as well. This is the slide that you've probably seen before. These are what people tell you you're going to save money with how metering is going to save you, and how you're going to use the data, kind of from an agency enterprise level. So that's why we have our front end. We want to be able to compare across our whole GSA agency, all the regions. We have 11 regions. Procurement, benchmarking, promote energy awareness, and we do some of that. I'm not saying these things don't happen, but this is kind of what you talk it up about. And then from the building perspective, the big one is obviously optimizing the performance of the building. How can I look at these, find anomalies, improve my baseline, improve my startup time, and I'll go over that a little bit in a minute. Demand response is big for GSA. We use that's another big one for us because there's a lot of money to be saved if our DC area buildings can curtail on those Pepco Gold days. So that's a big one for us. But this is where we really, the bread and butter of how we're actually using our meter data the most, where we're finding success. So O&M staff for GSA, we have to engage them, and some of them are more engaged than others. So we have to share this data with them, and not only share it with them, but get them to look at it and use it. And I have a slide later that kind of tells that story. But so our most engaged guys, they have their O&M staff looking at it every day. They have a morning meeting or a weekly Monday morning meeting, and they look at the trends from the metering data. Hey, why did this happen? Is this what you expected? That kind of thing, and you'll see some examples in a minute on some of my trends. Why is that spike there? Why did it take so long to power down? That kind of thing. You mentioned water, and water, I will say, we were all skeptic. We're not doing water. We don't have to do water. They didn't tell us we have to do water. We're not doing it. Listen, we got enough on our plate. But with ARA, when we did the stimulus package with GSA, we did say we would do water in those projects when cost effective. Next thing you know, we have a lot of water meters. They're great. We've seen so many success stories when they work. So when it got installed correctly, and all our lessons learned on that, we have found great success, and we're saving a lot of money with water meters when they're done correctly. So I have a few examples of that. We're requiring our O&M specs to review the data, putting that in their specification for O&M contractors that they're required to look at the meter data, required to look at it so that they can catch something. And that's been, it's been a struggle in some areas. Like everybody, you have a different staff at every building, so some staff are more engaged than others. I underlined and bolded report subscriptions. This is a capability that I'm sure a lot of front-end systems have. I don't think EEM's alone in this capability. But it can send out a report subscription. So what it does is we can take any report it generates, any trend it generates, and I can make it an email subscription. Because let's face it, if I give somebody another password that they have to go in, they're not going to do it. Some will, but a lot of them won't. So you can find that perfect trend. And the favorite that everybody likes to do is the Monday morning. How did my building shut down Friday? How did it come up on Monday? What did it look like over the weekend? So they can get that subscription Monday morning, and so they're just having their coffee and the email they can open up, and the trend pops right up on their email, not have to go into the system. The downside of that is I have a lot of guys who get in really early, and so I get to work and I have like, hey Karen, this didn't happen, or my report didn't come in, which comes to the whole support piece we're going to talk about. Reports are down, and they actually are down today in GSA. FYI, report subscriptions this morning did not go out. The good news is I had 48 emails telling me they didn't go out versus 6 months ago when no one would have told me, or a year ago, no one would have told me they went out because they weren't looking at them. So, I take the good with the bad. Retuning, that's the big piece, obviously. We want the O&M to take the data, tweak things, and see how your trend looks now after you've done some tweaking to your building. The second to last bullet, making models to validate suspicions. That's that complex side of the energy metering analysis, and we have some guys who are great at it. They love it. They love it, and we don't even understand what some of these mean, but they do. So it's great. Again, understanding your audience, which are your users. Who's using the metering system? What do they want to see? Are they a national program manager, a regional program manager, a building manager? What's not only their skill set versus, it's really their interest, to be honest. How interested are they in looking at it? And how much time do they have? Let's face it, these building managers have a lot of stuff on their plate. They don't all have time every day to look at meters or their trends and their dashboards. That same thing, so when you're designing your dashboard and the trends, what's the most simple view you can give them that's got a quick, actionable thing they can see, something they can quickly take a look at and know they have a problem, know they need to follow up with somebody, or know that everything looks good, which is what they want. They want everything to look good. So same thing on the opposite side of the spectrum, you got some good guys out there and you want to make sure your system's customizable so that they do want to do more with it and take it to the next level they can. So that's where the modeling and power quality pieces of our system have come into play. So I kind of said that first part of it already. So I categorize them into two. I don't have time for this user, which is a lot of them, and the engaged data geek that we also love. They're our favorites. And so, what do you need them to see? If they're not really that engaged, what's the most important thing for you want them to look at? Kind of figure that out, help them set up those trends and dashboards. What's the fewest clicks? Because if they have to drill down too far, they're not going to look at it. And set up some standard dashboards and trends and set them up for them and help them out so they don't have to go create them because it's never going to happen. What do they want to see? Because if they want to see it, they're going to look at it. The engaged user, set them free. Just give them the tools and let them go. But share, have them meet with each other. We have kind of a optional meeting every now and then. Hey, anybody wants to see some cool stuff that, I don't know if anybody's from Chicago, but this guy, Mike Virgilio at GSA, phenomenal. I mean, he can do anything with a set of data you want him to. So they share those trends and the successes, because if I tell them, it doesn't mean as much, whereas if the guy who's at a building just like theirs that has the same problems their building has tells them it worked, it goes a lot farther. The key thing, though, with these complicated trends, some of them don't know what they're looking at. So the training, you may have to have 2 levels of training, your basic training for your metering program, and then the more higher level one for the more complex trends. So this is just like when you first log in, we're GSA, so we're a federal government agency, so we have to have everybody has to have their own ID and own login. So luckily it's got some functionality, we can copy each other's dashboard, but this does create a lot of administrative front-end work for us. So it's just another one of those challenges. It's a resource commitment to have that. Password problems, the whole shebang, it goes with it. But on the left here, and I think this is what this does, these are where I can create my own customizable dashboard pages. So I can put the standings of the Red Sox, which I hope all of you know, they're doing very well. I can put the latest injury report and see if Garoppolo is going to be in for Thursday, and et cetera. So, but you can put whatever you want in here. So you can make it what they want to see. They may want to see state by state, may want to see the Pepco's Gold Day alerts, whatever they want to see. So that makes it nice because they can customize it to what they want to see. So when you drill into your region, then you can get to go to by state. And this is something, it's just a visual. It's nothing that was that difficult for them to create, but immediately they can see real quickly, this is what they're pulling in kind of right now, the meters for these different buildings. And they can immediately see, oh, this one's down. It's not reporting. So that helps them quickly. Then you drill down even farther, and it kind of shows that this building has electric, not too far, sorry. Electric, gas, and water and solar meters here. This is a building that has 3 pages of meters because we have some sub-meters for some of our larger equipment at this building. It's got a PV system. It's got a lot of cool stuff going on at this site. But again, some people will change the colors over here so they can quickly find their page. Because one of our super users, I think he has 84 pages along the left-hand side. So he color codes things to help him find what he's looking for on a particular day. So on those dashboard views, you have a national. I think I kind of talked about this already. But, for me, I like to have a quick look at, okay, what state might be having an issue, because sometimes where ours are regional, it might just be that regional server having the problem, so it's going to help you triage and troubleshoot. Regional teams might be looking at their own top buildings or their own watch list of buildings, but then down to the property manager, he's got a whole different perspective. He not only wants to look at what's going on in his building, but he mainly needs to see if it's down, if there's any troubleshooting that has to take place. Actually, I think, yeah, so that's where the gold, like all of our DC guys have a gold, the PEPCO alert page so that they know if they're in that situation. So this is what I meant, like multiple views. So one of those pages, you pop it up and it's got 4 different trends here. So he can quickly look and see, well, things are looking pretty good. You can color code, show weekends versus weekdays. This one's like this week versus last week with some temperature overlays. And then a quick water one to just make sure nothing crazy's happening in water. Same exact page, but for a different building, same state, same field office manager. He's got some problems going on. He can clearly see that he's got some startup spikes that are happening. So he knows he's got to go take a look at that. And the same thing, his weekend's supposed to look like this, but it looked like this. So this is a 2-week demand profile. A lot of them like to see that 2-week so that they can compare 2 different weekends at the same time. But the idea on this slide being, you can have a page and put a bunch of quick views, and then you can drill into one of those trends if you want to get more details. This one, I had to cover the name so as not to offend anyone. We get real picky about showing anybody if my building's bad. Don't tell anybody. So, but this is such a simple trend. This is not complicated. It's just time. Energy consumption over time, but putting all the buildings in their region or in their state on the same trend allows us to quickly see a couple startup and shutdown differences, startup spikes. This has been a really big one that once we got everybody using it, comparing buildings that maybe have a similar peak load, but why is their base load so different? Just real simple stuff, guys. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but because it just really pops up stuff that it's real obvious. Some people like to look at it a little different. This one's like this week versus today versus yesterday versus the same day last week, just different things that they want to look at. And this person does it, electric at the top and water at the bottom. Like I said, water, the ones who've had water and had some success, they're really taking off. But then we've had a few others, lesson learned, that the meters aren't right for the water. They're not capturing the low flow rates. So you got to make sure you get that right, or the water meters aren't going to be useful for you. This is the most simple, basic thing you've ever seen, but I keep it in here. I've had this slide, as you can see, since December of 2011, because it was such a great metering success story for us. This building's a great BAS system, great engaged O&M staff, but they either did an upgrade to the BAS or they changed something over, had to reset something, and nobody went back and checked that their holidays were right again. So super simple. Christmas came along, and you can see that this was the holiday. Christmas was on Sunday, but we got the 26th as our holiday. So they were able to see this right away because they could see the data when they came in on Tuesday. So they were able to go in, fix it, and then right away be able to see that it took effect correctly for New Year's Day, and quickly go change something and go check all their other ones and remind everybody, this is something so simple, guys. Make sure you're checking on it. Same thing happened in another building, not as same. So it wasn't the BAS, but it was just a lighting DDC control system. So the spike wasn't all the way up to here. It was just kind of like here, but still same story. So this is kind of what a more super user's dashboard looks like. They really color code. They really get down to what they want to do, what they want to see. So the next slide is going to talk about what I have here in this green box. So he likes to go down to his basement mechanical room, and he just wants to have his iPad, and he wants to be able to see things with color. So he has a real consistent color code, and you better follow the color code if you set up a new trend in his region. But so that way he can quickly see what he wants to see by building and how they're doing. So what he has here, you want less red, obviously. These are when it's within 10%. So he has like an average peak load for that month from the last year or 2 years, or last month and the same month last year. And he does a calculation in the trend as to what the the peak load is. And he wants to make sure he stays within a certain below a certain percentage of that peak load. So if the algorithm is if the data gets within a certain percentage of it, it turns red. And you want less red. You want these to be all black and just normal. I'm doing good. I'm keeping myself where I want to keep myself. And if he wants you to be, below the base load. He wants you to be at his peak optimal base load that he wants you to be at. And it's all formulas. And so then he can quickly have a visual about how this building's doing today. This one has to do with index pricing. We're making ice storage. It's an ice storage system. So, he sends out that subscription we talk about. So whenever the index rate is going to kick up to the higher rate, he has a subscription that goes out 30 minutes after it to the property manager that says, hey, you should have seen a drop. Hopefully once that price rate kicks up, you're not making ice anymore. Let's make sure we're optimizing when to make the ice based on what our prices are for electricity. So same thing, that report subscription comes out great. We do a similar thing, I just didn't have a graphic for it, with our demand response and load curtailment. If Pepco says send it out at 2 o'clock, we'll set something up or whatever. If 1 o'clock is when we're supposed to curtail, they can get that quick email that says, hey guys, you're not curtailing as much as you thought you were. It's going to cost us a lot of money. This one is another super user favorite. This is actually, he uses a model. And this is what I talked about with engaged O&M staff. And if you looked at this, it means nothing to you. He just wants to know, he just wants a red line going that way. That's his goal. So what he did was he took this is a model. He creates a model based on last year's data with this year's weather. And it basically says, if we were running our building like we did last year with this year's weather, what would our costs be? And this is as he suspected. They hadn't done any new projects. They just replaced the O&M staff. And the O&M staff happened to come on board right at the time. So all they did was change O&M staff, and he had a dollar value that actually didn't cross over when I copied it in. But this is calculating the difference between the blue line and the green line using his model, showing how much energy the building is saving just by having an O&M staff that's doing a better job this year. So same thing. So he looks at this every day, his QSUM. He always wants his red line to be going the right direction. Here he has one going the opposite direction. So they looked at it, what was going on, and it was as they suspected. Everything's going along, things aren't that different. And then all of a sudden, they added 45 people to the building. It's a smaller building. It's only like 3 floors. They added 45 people, and it was an agency that was having 200 visitors a day with a new tenant, and they were having some overtime utility requests. So people coming in outside of normal office hours. And it was, he literally, to the day that the tenants moved in, that's when this starts to go up. So he's able to demonstrate that this is real, how much it impacts my energy consumption. This is a data center. We were calculating PUE, and they were trying to get it below a certain threshold. They wanted to have it below this threshold here, so it would go red if it went above. It would stay blue as long as they were keeping that value low. And so they had the guy in there, throughout the first few days working, moving some cabinets around, they were unblocking some vents, and finally found the way that would make it where they could keep it under the PUE that they wanted. And again, that means nothing to most people. Like if you put that to some of your building managers, they're not going to even know what that is. But a data center, a building manager of a data center who's really got these thresholds they have to watch out for, it means something to them. So having said all of this, none of this stuff's going to work for you if you don't have good data quality. And so that's kind of where our biggest lesson learned with all of this has been. And I haven't been looking at my notes. I'm sure I had a lot of good stuff to tell you guys that I forgot. But just click over here. This is where our lessons learned have come in. And while we finally got a support contract in place that was a dedicated, so we have application support from Schneider Electric. Obviously, if there's a problem that's a Schneider issue, we have a contract in place with that. But what we found was we needed something else to not only data quality issues, gaps, spikes, but also when the communication went down. So all of a sudden your meter's not reporting. This is really critical because otherwise the confidence goes way down and your users stop using your system if all of a sudden there's all these gaps or it's always down. So we have 2 of them. We have one that's a troubleshooting, And they give us a daily source activity report. This just started a couple months ago, and it's been great. So every morning I get a report that shows all the sources that are down. And then once a week I use my Mike Virgilio Chicago analysis, and I compare if it's gone up or down, and it's been great. So that has been a huge help. They triage, they send it to our network ops. If it's a IP address, is it pinging? Is there a problem in the network, or what's our issue? And this I won't waste any time on, just knowing your training. This is just another graph to show kind of where they started versus once they made all their changes. This whole pink highlighted area is the savings once they tweaked the building load to be where they wanted it in the end. This is a nighttime audit. They went in with live and started adjusting things and got their base. So it looked like a normal load, but their base load they got it from here down to here, once they started tweaking it. Now, if I were to look at this building now, it's probably not here anymore. It's probably more like here. But so you have to keep repeating it. This was just an example of water. We saved, it was just one flushometer. They found one flushometer, but they found it the day it broke. And they literally, 130 gallons a day immediately because they saw it the day it broke. This was a leaky drain on a boiler that they found. This was I forget what this one was. But after the leak was fixed, yeah, so that's what it looked like before and then after the leak was fixed. And another great water story, and I'll wrap up, is this is just a first fuel screen, and that's my last slide besides this. But we actually had a spike in water. It was a real small building, but they noticed we shouldn't use any water on the weekend. Had a blip of water. Turns out, so they couldn't figure out, I was driving the building manager crazy, even though it was like a really small blip. Turns out they cross-checked it with our access cards to the building, and there was a guy that was going for a run and then going to the federal building and taking a shower after he went for his run. But we were able to track that down because we had a water meter. So little things. But that's all I have. My presentation is not in the proceedings, so if you guys want to write my email down, you can shoot me an email and I'll send you a copy of it. We have a lot of lessons learned, mainly IT hurdles that we've had to overcome. And I think that's all I had.